Have you ever changed the way you spoke because you were afraid someone might judge you?
I really think we should focus on,
I'm up to you.
but I mean, we could look at other options instead.
Have you stayed silent even when you knew you were right, simply because you did not want to upset anyone?
What is the core mechanism here?
It is definitely the price point.
Actually, it's the shift in demand.
Have you chosen a career, a relationship, or even a dream based more on what other people expected than on what you truly wanted? Most people believe these are small compromises. They think this is simply how society works. But according to one of the most influential ideas in modern psychology, these everyday choices reveal the real reason so many people never feel genuinely free. The surprising truth is that much of our unhappiness begins with a single habit: caring too much about how other people see us. The moment your peace depends on someone else's approval, your emotions are no longer under your control. Every compliment lifts you up. Every criticism pulls you down. Every rejection feels like proof that something is wrong with you. This creates a life of constant emotional instability because the people around you are always changing. Their opinions change. Their expectations change. Their standards change. If your happiness depends on all of them, then your happiness can never remain stable. This is the central idea behind The Courage to be Disliked, a book based on the psychology of Alfred Adler. It's structured as an argument between a philosopher and a skeptical young man. And the young man asks the question most readers are already thinking. If I stop caring what people think, don't I just become selfish? Isn't that what you're really asking me to do? The philosopher's answer is the spine of the entire book. Not indifference to people, indifference to their verdict on you. One of the book's most powerful statements says, "One must not fear being disliked. Freedom is being disliked by others." At first, this sounds uncomfortable. Most of us spend our entire lives trying to avoid exactly that. We try to be agreeable, polite, impressive, and acceptable to everyone around us. Yet the book argues that this endless pursuit of acceptance quietly takes away our freedom. Its promise is simple but life-changing. Real happiness does not come from making everyone like you. It comes from having the courage to live according to your own values, even when some people disagree. That courage is what this entire journey is about. To understand why this idea is so different from what most of us have been taught, we first need to understand the psychologist behind it, and where his ideas depart from the mainstream. Alfred Adler believed something remarkably hopeful. Everyone can become happy. Not some people, not only the talented, not only those with perfect childhoods. Everyone. This belief separated Adler from many psychological theories that focused almost entirely on the past. Instead of asking, "What happened to you?" Adler asked, "What are you trying to achieve?" According to Adlerian psychology, your thoughts, habits, emotions, and actions are not random pieces working independently. They are part of one unified system that moves toward a purpose. Every person develops a particular way of seeing the world. Adler called this a lifestyle, not clothing or money, but the unique pattern through which you interpret life, solve problems, build relationships, and make decisions. Many people call this personality, as though it were something permanently fixed. Adler disagreed. He believed your lifestyle is built through countless choices that gradually become habits. Those habits shape your thinking. Your thinking shapes your behavior. Over time, those repeated patterns create the person you become. This means your future is not trapped inside your past. The way you live today is not a sentence handed down by fate. It is the result of choices that can always be changed. If you repeatedly choose honesty, honesty becomes natural. If you repeatedly choose courage, courage becomes part of your character. If you repeatedly avoid difficult situations, avoidance slowly becomes the lens through which you approach life. Identity is not something you discover. It is something you build. This is why two people can experience similar situations yet develop completely different lives. The difference is found not in what happened to them, but in the choices they repeatedly make afterward. Adler also challenged another belief most people never question, that emotions simply happen to us. We say things like, "I couldn't help being angry," or "I became anxious." But Adler proposed something radically different. Emotions are not merely reactions. They serve purposes. They help us move toward goals we may not consciously admit to having. Consider fear. Imagine two people receive an invitation for a job interview. The first person feels nervous but still attends. The second becomes so anxious that they decide not to go at all. Most people would conclude that anxiety prevented the second person from succeeding. Adler would ask a different question. What if the anxiety achieved exactly what the person unconsciously wanted? By staying home, they avoided the possibility of rejection entirely. The interview could no longer expose their weaknesses because they never faced it. The anxiety served a purpose. It protected them from failure, even though it also prevented success. This is why the book presents another challenging idea. It's not that you lack confidence. You simply lack courage. Confidence usually appears after action. Courage comes before it. Waiting to feel confident before taking the first step often becomes another strategy for postponing change. The same way, procrastination can delay responsibility, or hopelessness can justify giving up before trying. Understanding this changes the question completely. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel this way?" you begin asking, "What purpose might this feeling be serving?" That single question often reveals motivations that have been hidden for years. Perhaps no idea in the book creates more controversy than Adler's view of trauma. Modern society often teaches that our past determines who we become. Painful childhoods, broken families, bullying, loss, failure. These experiences certainly influence us. Adler never denied that. What he rejected was the belief that they permanently control our future. His position is captured in one of the book's most memorable passages. No experience is in itself a cause of our success or failure. We do not suffer from the shock of our experiences, the so-called trauma, but instead we make out of them whatever suits our purposes. We are not determined by our experiences, but the meaning we give them is self-determining. This does not minimize suffering. It shifts attention toward personal agency. Two people may endure the same hardship. One allows it to become a lifelong excuse. The other allows it to become a reason to grow stronger. The event may be identical. The meaning they assign to it is completely different, and that meaning shapes the direction of their lives. This is why Adler believed freedom begins the moment we stop asking whether the past can be changed and start asking what we will do today. No matter what has occurred in your life up to this point, it should have no bearing at all on how you live from now on. You, living in the here and now, are the one who determines your own life. If your future is not completely controlled by your past, then every new decision becomes an opportunity to write a different story. And that realization leads us to another uncomfortable question. If happiness is possible for everyone, why do so many people remain unhappy for years? No one wakes up in the morning and consciously decides to suffer. Yet Adler argued that many people unconsciously maintain emotional patterns because those patterns serve a goal. Imagine someone who constantly says, "Nothing ever works out for me." Years pass, opportunities appear, but they rarely take action. From the outside, it looks like bad luck. Underneath, something else may be happening. As long as they remain convinced that success is impossible, they never have to face the risk of discovering their limits. If they never truly try, they never truly fail. Their unhappiness becomes a shield against disappointment. The goal determines the emotion. Change the goal, and the emotional pattern can also change. Adler believed that most human suffering is deeply connected to relationships. We rarely lose sleep wondering what a mountain thinks about us. We worry about our parents, our friends, our colleagues, our audience. The opinions of other people become the measure by which we judge ourselves. Some people approach relationships with one central objective: how can I make people admire me? These two goals may appear similar, but they produce completely different lives. One constantly waits to receive, the other focuses on giving. One depends on other people's reactions, the other depends on personal action. The first path creates insecurity because recognition is unpredictable. The second creates stability because usefulness is always within your control. Modern society quietly trains us to choose the first path. From childhood, we begin measuring ourselves through external approval. Good grades earn praise. Good behavior earns rewards. Slowly, we learn to associate our value with other people's responses. Without noticing it, approval becomes emotional currency. The book captures this trap perfectly. What you are really saying is that you don't want to be disliked by anyone. Think about how many decisions are influenced by this hidden desire. You hesitate before expressing an opinion. You avoid saying no because someone might become upset. You remain in unhealthy relationships because leaving could disappoint others. Little by little, your life stops reflecting your own values and begins reflecting everyone else's expectations. The book describes this loss of freedom with remarkable clarity. To live one's life trying to gauge other people's feelings and being worried about how they look at you, to live in such a way that others' wishes are granted. There may indeed be signposts to guide you this way, but it is a very unfree way to live. Seeking approval does not simply affect confidence. It quietly transfers ownership of your life to other people. Once your happiness depends on their opinions, they begin deciding how you feel without even realizing it. This pattern often begins much earlier than we imagine. As children, we are rewarded for behaviors adults approve of. When we clean our room, we hear, "Good job." When we receive high grades, we are praised. Rewards certainly encourage learning, but they can also create an unintended lesson. Instead of asking, "Is this the right thing to do?" we begin asking, "Will someone approve of this?" Our motivation slowly shifts from internal values to external recognition. One of the book's most thought-provoking observations explains why this matters so much. Being praised essentially means that one is receiving judgment from another person as good. And the measure of what is good or bad about that act is that person's yardstick. The moment your behavior depends on praise, someone else's standards become more important than your own. And the consequence follows directly. If receiving praise is what one is after, one will have no choice but to adapt to that person's yardstick and put the brakes on one's own freedom. Freedom always has a price. You cannot simultaneously live according to your own principles and guarantee that everyone will approve. Eventually, those two paths separate. One leads toward authenticity, the other toward constant adjustment. This is why Adler makes one of the strongest statements in the entire book. Unless one is unconcerned by other people's judgments, has no fear of being disliked by other people, and pays the cost that one might never be recognized, one will never be able to follow through in one's own way of living. That is to say, one will not be able to be free. That does not mean becoming rude or insensitive. It means accepting something unavoidable. Every meaningful life will disappoint someone. Every original idea will be criticized by someone. Every important decision will be misunderstood by someone. Trying to prevent that is impossible. And impossible goals always produce suffering. Once you understand this, an enormous weight begins to disappear. Your responsibility is not to control people's opinions. Your responsibility is to control your own choices. The moment you stop chasing universal approval, you recover your freedom. Yet many people never reach this point, because another invisible habit keeps them trapped. When life becomes difficult, they stop trying altogether. Not because success is impossible, but because avoiding action feels emotionally safer. And that avoidance slowly turns temporary fear into a permanent way of living. When people stop trying, it often looks like they have accepted reality. In truth, many have simply accepted a story they keep telling themselves. After enough disappointments, a person may begin to believe, there is something fundamentally wrong with me. At first, it feels like an honest observation. Eventually, it becomes an identity. And once accepted, every future decision begins to protect it. Every failure becomes evidence that they were right all along, while every opportunity is quietly ignored before it has the chance to prove them wrong. Adler argued that no human being should reduce themselves to a single label. Your mistakes and your failures describe moments of your life. They do not describe your worth. The moment you stop treating yourself as permanently broken, you also stop giving your past permission to decide your future. That same instinct to protect a fragile self-image shows up again in a place most people never expect: the way we treat the people around us. Many people believe competition is simply part of life. Adler did not deny that people have different abilities or achievements. What he questioned was the habit of measuring your own value by comparing yourself with everyone else. The moment life becomes a race, every person around you quietly becomes a rival. A friend's promotion feels like your failure. Someone else's popularity feels like your rejection. This is the psychology of scarcity. It assumes there is only a limited amount of success or respect available. But that is an illusion. The book summarizes the alternative with one simple sentence. Once one is released from the scheme of competition, the need to triumph over someone disappears. When people become competitors instead of companions, genuine friendship becomes difficult. Envy quietly replaces encouragement, and even achievements become lonely because everyone is trying to protect their own position. Healthy relationships cannot grow where comparison controls the conversation. Adler pointed to another hidden reason relationships become painful. Many people treat kindness like an investment. They give but secretly expect something in return: time, attention, loyalty, gratitude. When those expectations go unmet, disappointment follows. Think about someone who organizes an elaborate birthday celebration for a friend. Outwardly, it looks completely generous. Months later, when their own birthday arrives, they expect the same effort in return. If it doesn't happen, resentment begins to grow. The problem was never the birthday. It was the invisible transaction attached to the kindness. Whenever generosity becomes a contract, relationships slowly turn into emotional accounting systems. The relationship no longer rests on goodwill, it rests on debt. Adler believed there is a healthier goal that replaces both approval-seeking and competition, contribution. Instead of asking, "How can people value me?" the question becomes, "How can I add value to the lives of others?" Contribution does not depend on applause, it depends on action. Every person has opportunities to contribute. A teacher who patiently explains a difficult lesson, a parent who listens without judgment, a neighbor who quietly helps without expecting recognition. These acts rarely become headlines, yet they strengthen the communities we all depend on. According to Adler, contribution creates something recognition never can: a lasting sense of purpose. That is why the book says, if one really has a feeling of contribution, one will no longer have any need for recognition from others, because one will already have the real awareness that I am of use to someone, without needing to go out of one's way to be acknowledged by others. Helping others without expecting praise transforms motivation completely. Kindness becomes an expression of who you are, rather than a strategy for earning approval. This is also why Adler wrote, "A person who is obsessed with the desire for recognition does not have any community feeling yet, and has not managed to engage in self-acceptance, confidence in others, or contribution to others." Recognition may feel satisfying for a moment. Contribution builds something much deeper: character, purpose, and a quiet confidence that doesn't disappear when the applause ends. Perhaps the most compassionate idea in the entire book is Adler's belief that every human being already possesses value, not because of wealth, talent, beauty, or popularity, but simply because they exist. Modern society constantly encourages people to earn their worth, become more successful, more attractive, more accomplished, and only then will you deserve respect. Adler rejected that way of thinking. Your achievements may change throughout life. Your dignity should not. Accepting your imperfections does not mean refusing to improve. It means understanding that improvement begins from self-acceptance, not self-hatred. When you recognize your own inherent worth, something remarkable happens. You stop feeling threatened by the success of others. Instead of comparison, you feel encouragement. Instead of jealousy, you feel inspiration. Instead of rivalry, you experience shared joy. Communities become stronger when people celebrate each other's progress rather than compete for attention. This mindset replaces scarcity with abundance. There is enough success, enough opportunity, enough dignity for everyone. The final lesson of the book brings every previous idea together. Life is not something waiting in the future. It is happening now. Many people postpone happiness until they reach the next milestone. I'll be happy when I get promoted, when I earn more, when people finally appreciate me. But every postponed life eventually becomes a life that was never lived. Goals are valuable because they provide direction. They should never become conditions for happiness. Meaning is created through the way you live each ordinary day. The conversations you have, the work you do, the kindness you offer, the choices you make in the present moment. That is where life actually exists. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, only now. And so we return to where we began. The fear that controls so many lives is not failure. It is rejection. But rejection is not the opposite of freedom. Trying to avoid it is. Some people will misunderstand you. Some will criticize your decisions. Some simply will not like you. That is not proof that you are living incorrectly. It is proof that you are living as an individual, rather than as a reflection of everyone else's expectations. Remember these words from the book. The courage to be happy also includes the courage to be disliked. When you have gained that courage, your interpersonal relationships will all at once change into things of lightness. The goal was never to become indifferent to people. It was to stop handing them the pen that writes your story. Somewhere, right now, there is a version of your life that stops asking what everyone else will think. Adler believed that version was always available to you. It only ever required one thing: the courage to be disliked.